Welcome to Dew Champions.
Listen up. All you ever asked for is an opportunity. You got it today. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Yeah!
Come on with it, baby!
Yeah!
And an uncontrolled outpouring of hip young people.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah, red, white, blue, feel the cold wind blow. Breaking down the tape in the combat zone. From Orchard Park to the end zone throne. This is Bill's talk, hard facts, backbone. Yeah. Alex Cullen with the sharp insight. Randall Cypher scheming chess moves all night. Alex Molly, big dumb animal roar. Smashing hot takes through the studio door. Stats get funky, narratives get thrown. Through champions, media, Buffalo combat zone. Buffalo combat zone. Feed it, crowd chant, let's go Buffalo. Feed it, crowd chant, let's go Buffalo.
Hey folks, how we doing today? It is Saturday afternoon, and it is me and Owen finishing up EpicMock26, a 3-day event just like the NFL draft. We got to pick, we made some moves. Owen, how you doing?
Great. That intro is electric. That was awesome. I'd never seen that one before.
I know it is, isn't it? I absolutely love it. Our president, Mr. Jeff Brady, does a great job with the intros and graphics. I love it. But yeah, all right. Well, let's get cooking. It was obviously the 3-day event. It went quicker than I thought, to be honest with you. Kind of ran through the picks. Day 2 was quicker. Day 3, finished. I figured we'd probably be in about round 6.5 by now, but we moved.
Yeah, the timing, I thought, with us coming on at 1, I was like, okay, we'll catch the back end of this, maybe hit our last 6th, maybe our 7th round pick as, live picking it while we were here. But it wrapped up by I was done by 11:30. 2:20 came around. I made the pick, and then I was like, all right, cool. I'm signing off. I don't need to worry about trading back in for Riley Nowakowski or something like that. We'll get a fullback somewhere.
Yeah, UDFA for sure. And I'm sure that UDFA will maybe get Jack Stonehouse, since they've been talking about Jack Stonehouse for the past couple of days visiting Buffalo. That would be some good punters. But as a recap of our full draft, if anybody did not get a hold of what we did in day 1 and day 2, day 1, we ended up at pick 26, but we got an offer from the Cardinals at pick 34. We turned 26 into pick 34 and 104. They moved up. They wanted a right tackle, which makes sense for the Cardinals. They got to beef up that line for Brissett. And then we got into day 2, and the Saints were looking to move, and they were at pick 42. They were offering... It was their pick 42 and 73 and 150 for our 34 and 91. So we were able to move up about 20 spots in the 3rd round, which I think was super crucial in how we ended up. So with a quick recap, and we'll go back, we'll do this again. Our full draft in lines. First pick is Gabe Akis, the edge out of Illinois. We have Bryce Lance, the wide receiver from NDSU. We have Davison Igbinosun, the cornerback from Ohio State. We went with Jalen Husky, the free safety, strong and free safety, really. He could probably play some nickel if he wanted to. Out of Maryland, we went Malik Benson at pick 150 with the wide receiver from Oregon, which I love. I love the Cole Brevard pick, the defensive tackle for Texas. I love the Brian Parker pick, the offensive line for Duke. Jaden Duggar, again, Louisiana linebacker, another great pick. And then the Vanilla Gorilla, Caden Barnett, offensive lineman from Wyoming for the final pick. If you can, Owen, give us a little synopsis of how you were operating in day 3, making those picks, and where Malik Benson was our only double stacked them with the same position, actually in offensive line. So we did 2 in the same position, wide receiver, offensive line. Tell me what your thought process is once you got past Igbinosun and then got to Husky.
Yeah, so we had hit edge and we had hit wide receiver already on day two. So I was looking to add, we had players that we still had positions of need for, whether it was nose tackle, we had to add an offensive lineman to bring some competition in for Alec Anderson and just to fill out that depth after moving on from some guys this past offseason. And with looking forward to losing Osiris Torrance potentially next year. So that was high up on the needs. Linebacker as well. I know we have some guys in place right now, but just adding more players to fill out that room that more fit this scheme as we're transitioning away from the McDermott scheme, I felt like was a good investment of our picks. So coming into the day, knew we needed a CB3, ended up going with Igbenogson there. Well, to be fair, I was talking with this Randall before the show. Wasn't my pick. For this year was the year I got screwed. Last year, Jim, who we run our Tuesday podcast with when we cover the Buffalo Bills with Jim and Jerry Ostrowski, we did a draft last year and we took Ty Felton after a trade up, and Jim was not the most biggest fan of that pick. This year, right. Jim missed my selection of Husky at 104 and went with Igbenogson, which was fine. I think Igbenogson as a player is someone we would have been interested in taking at 126 anyway, because we were going to look for corner. That was kind of the thought process, was go safety, go corner. Those are the two most needy spots right now that are kind of limited in the talent that we really want. We knew that safety-wise, Genesis Smith went at 103, so we really only had Husky there that we really, really liked for a safety spot. And then at CB3, kind of the style of players we liked were going off the board. We were looking for maybe Ephesians Prysock or the Demings from what the FCS school is that from? Stephen F. Austin. A lot more of these long, rangy man coverage type corners. But Igbenogson fits that exact same mold. He had a bit of a holding problem in college, but it's kind of reared back a little bit. Has some higher pedigree stuff, so I'm not mad at that pick. After that, it was just looking for what still are our major needs, looking at nose tackle with Brevard, interior offensive lineman, and then just taking guys best available, which is where we ended up landing with Malik Benson and Caden Burnett at the end of the draft class there.
So what is your thought? So for me, I like Igbenogson. I get it. 6'2", 189. That'll stop happening. 6'2", 189. He has some good speed. I feel like my only concerns with him in the early fourth is he's not that fluid of an athlete to me. When he's at the combine, his drills looked a little off. His footwork was a little rough, and his fluid hips were kind of average for the combine. But I do think that he would be a good stash on the outside, especially with Leonard's. If we're going to go with man and then play a cover 3, I think he would fit in that behind and learn from Benford. I think that would be the best thing to do, is for him to really get mentored into Benford, unless, Dorian Strong comes back. And I know that Benford and Dorian Strong had such a strong bond. It'd be nice to get them back as well.
Yeah, I watched him in the summer and was kind of a bigger fan of him. He was a guy that plays with a lot of aggressiveness. I think you are right, going into more of the cover 3 heavy system where it's going to be a lot of off man or deeper zones where it basically turns into man if there's going to be a vertical route attacking your spot. You can live with some more hip stiffness. You're not running him in a lot of press man, not running him in those shallower zones where he needs to kind of change direction and make some quick decisions there. If you're asking him to, he ran a 4.45 at 6'2". You're asking him to bump and run, just carry guys vertically down the field. And he has some good ball skills. He's got great length. With those other traits, you like that he was aggressive with going and attacking the football and trying to make plays. And that was what got him in trouble sometimes with the holding, is that he would be a step too late because they were asking him to be a number 1 shutdown corner at Ohio State. Right. And some of these better receivers kind of just got the better of him. So he got, and he was trying not to do
ready for your
anything crazy that would get him to.
Is here to make it happen. Our travel advisors handle the details, so you can focus on making memories. Book with AAA Travel and vacation with confidence. Visit AAA.com.
This is the ad down below.
Yeah. There we go. It's gone. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's right. He was wanting him to be aggressive. He would want to make plays. It would get him in trouble, and that's where you got the holding calls from. But I'd rather teach a guy to be more conservative than try to pull a guy out of to be aggressive. If this guy lands, especially at the corner position, CB3, where you can deploy him a lot more selectively, I think that'll be something we're really excited for, because he can come in and be like a sub-package player that makes a lot of splash plays without hanging him out there for too long to have a bunch of negatives go against him.
Yeah, I very much agree. And I know that there's a polarizing fan base that believes where we should take a cornerback. And I think it's a lot earlier than a lot of people are thinking with Dorian Strong. Christian Benford 2 years ago had some concussions, and then Max Harrison had 2 injuries in his rookie year. So the importance of a guy that can really step into a role is very, very important in the cornerback market. And I do think getting Igbenogson from Ohio State is really good because they ran a lot of pro-style defense. And his transition to the NFL might be easier for somebody than potentially, I know that I think Sicario Davis would have been a good pick around here. I'm not sure where he went either. And like those players are probably good transition as well. But there are a lot of smaller school guys that might have more of a difficulty transitioning. I think Igbenogson is a guy who can has a decently floor in his cerebral on how to run quarterback and can transition well to the NFL.
Yeah, even look at the other guys, the other names I mentioned that we were interested in taking there. When Prysock, who is purely a man coverage guy, he's not really all there when it comes to the mental side of it in zone. He's super lost whenever he's asked to drop to zone coverage, especially in lower zones. So Igbenogson has him there with that kind of mentality when it comes to how to process and understanding how to play his role in a defense, and a pro-style defense more often. And then Charles Demings, while he is a great athlete and showed really good zone and man coverage technique, he is playing at a lower level competition, and he could get away with some stuff that you're not going to be able to get away with once the level of competition gets raised up to the NFL level. So I think Igbenogson is a guy that probably is the best of both worlds there. While he maybe doesn't have as much high upside with those other two when it comes to athleticism, I do think that he is the highest floor of the three players when it comes to being a guy who can come in and play outside corner in case of an emergency as quickly as as quickly as you need him if there is an injury.
For sure, I very much agree. And then the next hot topic, let's talk about nose tackle, because nose tackle for Buffalo can go. People will agree with 26 and Caden McDonald, 91 at Dominique Orange or Lee Hunter, and then entertain the day threes. Me and you are both on the same page when it comes to kind of a day three nose tackle that can fit with Fedarian Mathis, and then potentially Deion Walker moonlighting as a pass rushing nose tackle. So Cole Brevard, I don't think is on a lot of people's radar. So talk about Cole Brevard a little bit and why you believe, and I agree with you, why he is a good nose tackle for Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, so we ended up taking him with the 165th pick, which is in round 5 of this draft class, which I think is the sweet spot right now for nose tackles. You were saying that those names that are going to be higher up on my list, like you have the Kristen Millers, the Dominique Oranges, the Caden McDonalds, the Lee Hunters of the world, which are going to be really strong players in that range. But to be honest with you, a lot of those guys I just mentioned, majority of them, maybe Kristen Miller above the rest of them, don't really have a lot of upside when it comes to pass rush and ability to go out there and have tape on there that shows that they can do that. There are a lot more high floor players because they can run defense, so I can understand taking that, but you're getting a guy who's going to be a 2-down player in a higher level of investment. I think that going day 3, especially with how strong this class is the better option for me personally, because I don't think you're getting a slacker in any of these guys, because right before we took Brevard, you had Demonte Capehart. If he was there, we would have taken him, Chris McClellan, a lot of these guys who do the same things, but you're not investing as much into them. Brevard, I think, is only getting drafted as low as he is because a lot of people don't really know about him, and that the only thing they saw of him was the 2025 tape. I know the main draft feed that they were covering, they were kind of split on him, and it was because they said he's a big guy, he's like 320, 330 pounds, and he looks it.
340.
340. There you go, even better.
His pro day was 340.
Big boulder of a man that just eats up blocks. If you see the Ohio State game week 1 again from Texas's defense, his first time playing in the system, and he on a goal line stand, they stopped him 8 times on the 1-yard line, and he was just absorbing dudes down there and making plays. It was insane. So if you're looking for a guy that can do that kind of block eating run defense in the A gap, right head up on the center, this is your guy. But if you go back to his 2024 tape, which I got eyes on him because he had transferred to Texas from Purdue, and I was doing a Texas preview coming into the summer, and watching him at Purdue, they used him a lot like Texas used Devondre Sweat, where they had him lining up as a 5-tech, lining up as an even front D end and having him twist inside. And he even had a bunch more pass rush production while at Purdue in that final season there. So he's a guy that maybe he was playing a little bit lighter there and playing with different kinds of technique and different kind of role for Purdue. But in that film, you could see some explosiveness, some natural pass rush moves, some things in his bag that he just didn't utilize at Texas because that wasn't the role they were asking him to do. When it came to third downs, they pulled him off the field. And I do think he added some weight on this year at Texas to play that more early down role. So he's a guy that has both things you really love in a nose tackle on tape. That's not together in one season, which makes him kind of fall a bit further down the board. But I think there is some untapped potential there to maybe get him back to what he was doing in Purdue, but also still have the experience and learned experience in what he did this year in Texas.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I had him in my summer scouting as well, and I really liked what I saw at Purdue. It was interesting that he came in at 340 because I think Texas probably put him in that mold, but it's exciting to know that he can do both. So really, he's a ball of clay that you can get him to move and things along those lines. So I very much agree with you. I'm a big Cole Brever guy. I loved him in Purdue and then loved him in Texas. All right, now let's move on. We double dipped in wide receiver. And I think that might be a polarizing one. I think there's some folks that may have to be convinced that Bryce Lance is not a reach at 73. And do you want to maybe describe why he's not a reach at 73?
Yeah, I think we had this discussion last night on the Overreaction Buffalo podcast with Jerry Ostrowski, his channel over there. When we made the pick, that's Jerry's guy. He loves him some Bryce Lance from NDSU. Jerry's just a big fan of the FCS guys in general. But Lance, for a guy, he is 6'3" or 6'4", something in that mold.
6'3".
Yeah, right. And he ran a 4.3 440. So at the worst case scenario, you're getting a guy who has size and is the fastest receiver in the receiver room day one stepping in. He's a guy that brings in a level to your offense that you just haven't had. Teams are going to have to respect those deep field shots, and he did that a lot in North Dakota when it came to running vertical routes, posts, and then also some more crossers, some more linear routes to be able to run away from coverage. I think he can do a bit more. He has a bit more fluid hips and a bit looser to do more. It just didn't get shown a lot, either that or the run after catch while his time in North Dakota State. That's just not the style of offense they run. They'd like to run it down your throat and then hit those deep bombs so they're height, weight, speed freaks on the outside. So you're adding a guy that is your giant target who can move down the field, clear out those safeties, allow DJ Moore and Khalil Shakir to work the middle of the field, to help Kincaid up that seam. He complements exactly what you need in that wide receiver room. But he is different than Malik Benson, that was the first pick that I was like, last second, we're going to change this up because we had kind of a structure and a plan of what we wanted to do. We weren't anticipating double dipping at wide receiver, but I know, Randall, you put me on to Malik Benson. Now I'm pretty high on him as well. I had a 3rd round grade on him. And at pick 150, I texted Randall, I'm like, if he's still there, we got to take him. He's another guy, 6 foot tall and runs in the low 4.3s, high 4.2s. And so You're adding that kind of Brandon Cooks element you're missing that once he left your team last year, but you're also adding a guy that has extensive experience as a punt returner. So maybe you're wondering how he's going to impact the offense, regardless of if everyone stays healthy, he doesn't really have an easy pathway there. He'll probably be your wide receiver 5 with how it currently stacks up, maybe 4 over Keon, but you don't have to worry about the return on investment from just the offense because he's going to be your primary punt returner, which is kind of a wide open spot for the team right now. So he's a guy that brings a lot of stuff that I really love for the offense, but has immediate payback when it comes to working in special teams.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of Malik Benson. I think he's got incredible yak, and his breakaway speed is top notch. And then he has good burst, but that 3rd level is fantastic. And he runs good routes. He decelerates pretty impressively. Doesn't really sink the hip so he can sell the go, but he can stop pretty quickly but still standing up. So he sells the goal well for his size, for his speed. He runs good interior. Can't really go like outs, but he goes good ins. I like to call him like he runs the Jameson Williams route tree, and then he has that speed as well. So if you can mold him into a Jameson Williams guy with some manufactured touches as well, I think you kind of get to his ceiling, and at 150, it's an absolute steal.
Yeah, and to answer Andy's question in the chat here, so he says, so if Lance develops his route tree, can he be a true number 1 in a couple of years? I'm not going to rule that out as a potential ceiling for him because he is so elite when it comes to his size and athletic profile, and the fact that he was kind of limited for what he did there. I know I don't want to call it a lazy comp because they went to the same school, but he's very similar to me for what Christian Watson was coming out of NDSU when the Packers took him in the 2nd round, where it's a guy that if he does what he does right now, you're going to love it. I think he's more closer to a really good 2, maybe a 1B if you really can develop a lot more. I don't really see a ton of when it comes to the run after catch ability there to develop. He's more of a just put his head down, get upfield, and use his physicality type guy. But for the level of athleticism he has and the fact that he could develop more of a route tree, I think he could get up there as a guy that you're confident in having and maybe is similar to how you view DJ Moore before this draft class. Like you love that you have him and you're happy you have him going into the season, but you maybe want to add another guy to kind of complement him as opposed to having him be like that one all-around player that you really want at wide receiver.
I agree. Yeah, I kind of, even though we were swayed a little bit by Jerry Ostrowski, I think he swayed us the right way. I think it was a fantastic pick at 73, and then we got a fantastic wide receiver at 150. I am mega excited about Malik Benson's punt return ability that we desperately need, really. I'm glad we have Ray Davis in that backfield for kick returning. We really need that extra 10 yards, if you will, in punt returning. All right, now let's go to our second double dip, and then we'll hit our linebacker. Brian Parker and Caden Barnett. I'm thrilled that you get to talk about Caden Barnett right now and that we double dip in the offensive line. I think it's super smart when it comes down to it, giving good competition to Alec Anderson at that left guard spot, because I think they're hoping that he gets the starting job, and I think it's a good idea that Alec Anderson gets that starting job, but I think he needs people behind him to make sure that he needs to still win that draft, win that spot. So Brian Parker is probably going to go. You see him as a center, am I correct? More?
Yeah. I saw he played tackle at Duke, and I think he's going to have to kick inside to be an interior player. I wouldn't rule out playing guard. I think where you draft him right now, because neither of the guy was a high value investment. The reason we went Brian Parker over some other option was just because he was my best available player on the board. While yes, I do think his best position is center. The fact that he was still available at pick 168, which is the end of the 5th round, I think you draft him and try him out at guard, even though that's not something I particularly would project him to. But I do think he can play there. I think between him and Barnett, you're looking for a guy that's going to try to develop there. I think Barnett, he was a 2nd-round grade for me. He's a guy that Parker is a 2nd-round grade for me. He could be a player that comes in and pushes Alec Anderson for that starting spot immediately. And if you ever get into a situation where you want to come off of center and maybe have him push inside and develop later on, that could be something you can always have open for you. And he has experience playing tackle in college, so if you need a pinch hitter there, that's also an option. Barnett, for me, was a guy that is going to develop more as that like swing tackle or 6th additional offensive lineman, primary backup for both guard spots. Another guy who has experience playing tackle in college, but he was already kind of seeing a limited ability to play at tackle at Wyoming. So they kicked him inside there, and he kind of really started to flourish. He's more of that needs to be seasoned, Barnett, that is, where with Parker is a lot more polished, a lot more ready to go, coming out of Duke, being a captain, being a starter for multiple seasons at multiple positions. I think you're pretty sure he flipped sides from left tackle to right tackle or vice versa, while also taking snaps at center while participating in the Senior Bowl and playing on the interior there. He's a guy that is a lot more ready to go right away, whereas Barnett, he is the Vanilla Gorilla. That's his nickname. Giant dude who I saw clips of him just blocking dudes one hand at a time, clearing them out of pathways. If you're looking for the guy with like the best overall power when it comes to down blocking and clearing guys out of gaps, he's probably up there, and he's built very like svelte, like just chiseled, not fat, not overweight or anything. He can just clear guys out of gaps and looks like the Hulk while doing it. It's just going to be reining him in, making a play with more patience, more technique, especially in pass pro. So he reminds me a lot of what Alec Anderson is for us right now when it comes to that like nasty dude who can come in. And then if you're looking for maybe replacing Alec Anderson next year because you had to pay him this year, that's your go-to step right in. And a lot of the guys they have currently on roster, like Grable, injury history, Corbett, injury history, Cushenberry, injury history, you have a lot of options for these guys to make the roster and fill out those spaces or even beat these veterans out. Because like we signed Kendrick Green last offseason when we already thought we had some decent depth. And they're not afraid to cut veterans if they think that the guys who are younger on that line can step in and make those roles. So for me, I'm always going to side with taking offensive lineman over any other position because you can never have too many good offensive linemen. And a lot of these guys, like I said, Parker was a 2nd-round grade for me, and that was at the end of the 5th. And Barnett was in the 7th, and I have him as like a borderline 3/4 grade. I think he could be a really strong pick at the beginning of the 4th round, and he was there at the 7th. So I think value plus positional value is really what led me to go there.
Definitely. And then, we'll talk about that because we'll go through. I have the 7th round pulled up, and there's some guys on there that's pretty crazy. But we'll jump in because now another one, we'll get to the last one pick that we haven't talked about, Jaden Duggar in Louisiana. And, linebacker is a need for sure. But we also have to realize that what we have on the roster right now, might fit Jim Leonard's defense a little bit better than McDermott's defense, and you can tell that Terrell Bernard's coming back from injury, so I think he gets a true shot at the will linebacker spot this year, and I think he will bounce back much better at that will. And we have Dorian Williams moving into that inside linebacker on a contract year. And I am a big fan of Dorian Williams, especially in this type of defense where they're not going to ask as much as they would out of Dorian Williams in McDermott's 4-3. So I think Dorian Williams stepping into an inside linebacker role, how he's such a run stuffer, and he had to kind of spot drop a little bit in McDermott's defense. So he's got some of it there, but he used some pass rush juice. He learned some pass rush juice last year. And coming into this contract year, I think Dorian Williams has a good shot at taking that inside linebacker. So what we did is we took somebody we were interested in, people like Jayshon Barham in the top 100 because he's a versatile linebacker who played weak side linebacker, middle Mike linebacker, and now moved to the edge. And Jaden Duggar is somebody like that in Louisiana who is a freak as an athlete. At his pro day, he's got 35-inch arms. He's got over 9.5-inch hands. At 6'4", 242, he ran a 4.61 40-yard dash, a 1.61 10-yard split. He had a 34.5-inch vertical. He had over a 10-foot broad jump. He made a 7-flat 3-cone, a 4.45 20-yard shuttle. He's an athletic freak that Jim Leonard would love to use in a versatile position like we were talking about Barham. So what do you have on Duggar as well?
Yeah, so Duggar was a guy we watched coming up for our last week's episode. We were talking about smaller school prospects, and he's a guy I started to fall in love with. He took a top 30 visit to go with the Packers, and that's what kind of put him on my radar for me over at Louisiana. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. He's a super great athlete, and he had 4 sacks his final season at Louisiana. That's both coming up the middle, blitzing the A-gap, while he's also coming off the edge. He is clearly and obviously the best athlete out there, especially when it comes to tracking the run, being able to be rangy from sideline to sideline and make those plays, but also coming downhill. And if he can shoot a gap and explode through, I do think that is where he excels. And when he comes to pass rushing, he has some moves, especially with using that athleticism and that burst to beat tackles off the ball or beat tight ends off the ball and then get through. He's a hitter. He likes to hit stick. His coverage, I do think, is a bit underdeveloped. When he was able to just kind of be an athlete out there and carry guys up vertically, that was where he started to excel a bit more. Yeah. But I think with everything we wanted in Barham, you can get from Duggar. It's just going to take a few more years to develop that out of him as opposed to Barham, who I think is a bit more juiced up. And I know, so Jim texted me basically saying, like, he was asking me a question about my double dip at lineman. And I said I would answer this question in the pod because he's heading out for some lunch. But basically, he was like, oh, double dip at linebacker or double dip at corner would have been maybe something that would have been better than double dip at O-line. I personally see a pathway for Barnett to make the roster, beating out with some of the guys that we signed this offseason, because we made some like small investments here or there. But between Grable, some of the other Vampire and Granger, Corbett even, if we had both Parker and Barnett, you don't really have to worry about the depth at center because Parker is going to be a center type player as well. Right. You can then have Barnett basically battle it out for the final lineman spot. And I would give him the advantage because I do like him a lot better than a lot of the guys that we have now when they were coming out. And when it comes to looking at linebackers, the only other linebacker I was really looking at this spot when it came to the 7th round went right before our pick with the linebacker from Michigan in Boulder.
Jimmy Rolder.
Rolder, yeah. So he was the only other one I was really looking for that would fit kind of the scheme, was still available at this point in the draft. And he went, and I was like, okay, well, we'll stick in like Declan Williams, who was another FCS player we talked about in that episode last Tuesday. He's kind of that more downhill, very physical, thumping presence out of Incarnate Word, 8.62 RAS with 30-inch arms, put up 28 reps in the bench press. Like, he's a guy that maybe isn't as athletically gifted enough to survive the NFL as a consistent starter. But if you're looking for a primary backup who can come in, push some of these guys, be kind of in that Joe Andreessen mode before Joe Andreessen kind of established himself, I think he's a good UDFA target. Wade Woodaz, the linebacker from Clemson, he's another one that I've liked that I kind of forget is in this draft class, but I go back and look at it, and he performed at the combine. He's 6'3", 240. Like, he's a guy that can come in and perform well in this system as well. So for me, there's some options here at UDFAs that I felt like Barnett, even if he made it to UDFAs, it would be hard to get to sell him on being like in the battle for last spot, especially O-line. Just looking at it from like maybe a psychology point. If you were the GM, trying to bring a guy in and trying to see who would make the roster. It's harder of a sell to sell a lineman to try to make our roster than a UDFA linebacker or corner. So I feel like taking the lineman with the pick is also kind of leaning more towards that.
Yeah, that honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I definitely understand Jim's point of view at that point, but I do believe, I truly think we've built an offensive line so well. We've always had offensive line depth that other teams covet, and I'd like to continue that. And I think that's consistently drafting guys to make sure that you're competing for those offensive line depth just as it's important for the starters as well. So I'm with you when it comes to offensive line. I always want to have good guys behind our guys to make sure that they can step into a role, because as Brandon Bean said, the most important thing is about protecting. And there was a point in time last year where we didn't have both our tackles, and they stepped in and did a great job. I never want to lose that opportunity in that aspect. So I think double dipping at offensive line is a good call.
Yeah, especially like looking into next year, Alec Anderson's contract's up again, and then Osiris Torrance's contract is up again.
Right.
So realistically, you're hoping that by next year you can either re-sign Osiris Torrance and then have a cheaper option, or maybe have an out with the Connor McGovern contract to compensate for that. But regardless, if it's going to be Barnett and Parker eventually becoming starters for your offensive line, that makes it a lot cheaper, and you're not having to force either of those guys into the lineup right away because you have Alec Anderson and Osiris Torrance on your roster right now. So it's both a fix right now, I think, with Parker at left guard, and then maybe a future spot for you to either pay Alec Anderson, depending on this season goes, let Torrance walk, or pay Torrance, let Anderson walk, and you still have the majority of your starting spots secured with guys who are ready to step in and take over after a year of being in your system.
Right. And, it's not as common as people think when you get plucked off the practice squad. So anybody on that practice squad, generally safe, in my opinion. A lot of people don't get immediately plucked off before like September 1st and week 1. And, you can definitely make it work. So I love that. We won't take too much of your time because this is day 6 in a row for me on podcasting. How about you?
Yeah, I did what? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I'm debating going on tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to talk about the UDFAs that didn't get picked in here.
I figured that you'd be interested in that for sure. If I didn't podcast one of those days in the week, I probably would too. But I hear you. But let's go through. So I won't take up much of your time, but I'm interested in seeing what the 7th rounders went. There's a lot of interesting people that have gone. If I'm not mistaken, man, there are people in the 6th round too that, like Max Llewellyn, Renee Conga, Micah Morris was in the 6th round. Brandon Cleveland went in the 6th round. Did you ever think about taking Isaiah World in the 6th?
I did. So he was on the board for that pick with Duggar. It was for me. It was between going offensive line again, or then going with one of the linebackers. And then I felt like we were running out of linebackers to take there, so it was going to be either Duggar or it was going to be Rolder. I decided to go Duggar for the athletic upside, especially because you don't need a starter right away, and you also have some decent depth at the moment. You're just looking for a depth developmental guy. But like there was a run there after we took Duggar where like Rashawn Benny, Pat Coogan, Brennan Thompson, Jude Bowery. I have a 3rd round grade on Jude Bowery.
So do
Isaiah
I.
World, I have a 3rd round grade on.
Yeah.
A lot
Dante
of
Corleone.
Dante Corleone. Yeah, a lot of these guys that went, I have like day 2 grades on that were still there in the 7th round. So if I had 5 other 7th round picks, I would have been happy. But I think where we went and took our guys, I got guys who had day 2 valuations on them in my eyes, and were at positions that I really liked, instead of like taking a second nose tackle, Dante Corleone, where I'm like, I can't pass this opportunity up here.
For sure. Absolutely. And that's like kind of where we're kind of getting at is that all these people are very fair. I mean, Jacoby Thomas went in the 5th. Miles Scott went in the 5th. We took Malik Benson. K'Ron Crawford went in the 5th. All these are like legitimate picks. And then you look like of good players. Renee Conga in the 6th. Cole Wisnowski in the 6th. Kendrick Law in the 6th. Zane Durant.
Zane Durant's a crazy one to fall that far.
Crazy one. Who was it? Jordan Vandenberg from Georgia Tech. That's another defensive tackle that I like as well. So, like, all these guys are legit. And then you're looking at round 7, which you guys, I'll definitely watch that UDFA show. I'm very excited about that UDFA show because you're looking at the 7th, right? Like Tyrone Montgomery going in 7th, Justin Jefferson, Anthony Lucas, CJ Daniels in round 7. You get Max Bredesen in there. Xavier Sari is a good inside linebacker that's kind of underrated from Arkansas. Owen Heineke, a lot like Matt Milano. You got Cam Ball. Like all these guys, Colby Young with the Mr. Irrelevant. Like that's a guy that can really make it work. and that just shows signs where I think that how much the draft is a bucket of guys that have a lot of talent surrounding them is somewhere where our late day 3 picks and what Brandon Bean does well in those late day 3 and what you did today with those day 3s are like, we're getting guys. We're getting guys that can fit the roster, and that's exciting to see.
It's going to be really hard for Brandon Bean to make me pissed off with this draft class if he does.
Right.
I don't know how we can mess it up with how many options I had at each pick for, like, I'd be happy with any of these 3 or 4 guys at this pick, and I just had to pick one of them, and they were all in our position of needs, I think. So the comment you have on the streamer now about Torrance getting the 4x25 or 4x25, that's what I'm a little worried about, and why I would want to invest maybe an extra guy in a rookie contract on offensive line, especially someone like Barnett, who is more developmental, but I think has the traits to be a guy that can come in and do what Alec Anderson does. I'd also be more inclined to pay Alec Anderson, 3 years, 30, so 10 per, and then have him be the starter versus Torrance. Because I didn't really love the Torrance pick when we made it. He's superseded my expectations for what I thought the offense was going to want to do. But for me, he's a guy that I think is kind of reaching the ceiling of where he's at, which is a good guard. But is that worth paying him $15 million per year more than a guy that is more of an average guard, or trying to bank on developmental players, or just making that your first round pick next year, where you're going to try to replace him with a cheaper rookie? I think that's where the Osiris Torrance is like my pivot point of where you can play the comp pick bingo and then try to be one of those teams that replenishes your needs through the draft with cheaper players, especially for like interior offensive line, where we see in this class, you were just listing a bunch of names. How many of those names were offensive linemen that we just listed off that went in later day 3 that we were like, yeah, we have way higher grades on them than that? There's a ton of guys still available that I was like, okay, I can find players to come in and maybe give me something, or have the upside to give me something to prevent me from having to sink a $25 million cap hit per season into Osiris Torrance.
100%. I 100% agree. There's certain spots on this roster when we're looking through to navigate the cap, is we have to figure out where we're going to get cheaper. And we just paid our center. Our tackles make a lot of money. We can't pay second contract value for all 5 guys. So you kind of got to get cheaper there. And then even when you're looking at Inez Cooper from Miami going in the 7th round, like, that's a good pick as well. So I agree with you. That's when we got to go. If he takes 15 per year, then that's
you jump on that immediately. Yeah. I would throw that at him right now.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you can backload it, and then that's Andy. If you can get a hold of him, please get a hold of him. And you never know. Like, to be honest, that offensive line is so tightly knit. Like, when you listen to Connor McGovern's discussion on why he chose to take $4 million less per year to stay in Buffalo, all that offensive line and Josh Allen, they're all having babies together. So, get a baby there, and then they want to stay in Western New York as well. That's a plug. So, yeah, I mean, if he could take 15, we jump on that. I agree with you there. But there's not a world. We can't determine what he's going to take. But I agree with you. There's always a shot that you'll take a little bit less.
I hope Andy is secret Osiris Torrance's agent, and that's what he's actually going to try to get, because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, this event was awesome. I love this event. I can't wait till next year. EpicMock27. Any final? We'll get out of here because it's been a long week, and we're getting ready for the draft. We're gonna have another crazy week in 2 weeks when the draft comes, and nothing but nonstop podcasting from Thursday to Saturday. Any parting words for the EpicMock26? What honest grade for the final of Vol 7? You giving us an A? Are you giving us a B plus? What are we feeling?
I think so. Just looking at the picks I made, Akis is a starting caliber player. If anything, he's a DPR. He's going to contribute. You look at Bryce Lance, starting caliber player, at least he's going to contribute. Same with Malik Benson. Starter. I think he is a borderline starter caliber wide receiver. If we didn't take Lance, I would have taken him and been happy to have him be the guy who's our wide receiver 3. So I would give that one a high grade. Brian Parker, I see as a starter right away, stepping in. Barnett, developmental guy, probably is going to impact. Same with Duggar. We either went for guys that had value as starters with higher floors, or some high ceiling guys. So I would probably give myself, I'd give myself an A, just from turning the limited amount of picks we had into ending up taking 9 players, and the majority of those players I see as way higher than where we ended up drafting them at, and getting starter caliber players all the way up until day 3. I think we are and we hit every position of need at least once. I think we crushed this, and that this is going to be outside of like fullback, which I was mad. I was banking on one of Bredesen or Nowakowski falling out of the 7th round here, and they went back to back at 243 and 244. So.
Right. You know why? That's because this is, ran by draft professors, and Jim loves to talk about fullback. So he's always in people's ears when it comes down to it. But I agree. I give us an A. I think Gabe Akis is sneaky good pick for Buffalo, and I think it's predictive as well, especially because we have that Illinois coach that we brought over as well. And what he does at 260 with a 1.60 10 yard and how he's able to rush the passer, I think is NFL caliber. So you start there. And I do agree. I do agree with what you said about Akis. My knock for him was, his run support, but really it's just kind of getting him to be patient at the start. I think his big flaw is RPOs and misdirections. So if you can just get that out of him, then he can be more than a DPR. And I think it's very easy for him to get there. And I agree. I mean, Bryce Lance, I think, is a home run. I think that's exactly what we need at 4.3 speed on that outside X is exactly what we need, and that's who he is. And I think Jalen Husky is sneaky at 126. It's wild that he's not getting enough limelight, especially because when you look at the guys that are high on him, they have a good caliber retribution, and they talk well about the draft. So Jalen Husky's not getting the national media, but he's getting the internal media that he deserves for sure. And I love that. And then me, Cole Brevard is one of my guys. I love Texas nose tackles. I love what he did in Purdue. I agree he can be a two-faceted guy. So I think I give you an A as well, by the way. So great job.
The only reason I don't give myself an A+ is because we couldn't land Jay Sean Barham.
Yeah, that's fair. But Gabe Akis came with that. And
You're
the trades were an A as well when it comes down to it. Because I really love that we are able to pull from 34 to 42 and then move up in the 3rd round. I think that 91 and between 91 and 73 is pretty substantial when it comes to who we can get and what the pool of players will be at 73. And I think that Brandon Beane will be looking to do the same.
Yeah. The net trade from 26 was 26 to 42. It was 26 and 91 for 42, 73, 104, and 150. Was
That's
the net
so good.
Trade of what we got.
That's so good, right?
You move up 19 or 18 picks in the 3rd round. You only fall back 16 picks from 1st to 2nd, where you're kind of in that weird spot to begin with anyway. And then you get 2 high 4th rounders. It's or a high 4th rounder, and a high 5th rounder. It's phenomenal, I think, for what we did there. I know a lot of people, or some people on Twitter, didn't like the first trade we did, but combining the two together, I think, kind of really pieces it all together for how we were able to capitalize on what other people really saw as players following that maybe were at positions that we didn't need, or players that we weren't really fond of for our team, like Denzel Boston, Blake Miller, etc.
I agree. And honestly, I think I may value 104 more than a lot of people. I think that's a really good pick, super early in the 4th to get a guy, especially when you take that break into day 2 and day 3, and you can get a really good guy at 104. So I know that it may not look in the trade value chart or it may not look insanely sexy, but I think pick 104 is a really, really good pick to have.
Yeah, and I think this draft class especially is going to kind of wrap up Andy's message here. The class we did, we got a starting end or at least a DPR to eventually take over for Chubb so you can move off that contract. We got a starting wide receiver who can maybe allow you to get out of Keon's contract and eventually take over for DJ Moore. Another receiver that I think is your starting punt returner, immediate return, but also can be a guy later on the field, later down when you're moving on from Khalil Shakir or DJ Moore and you want to get cheaper there. He can take over there in Benson. And starting nose tackle who can kind of be a developmental piece, starting safety can be a developmental piece who also can allow you to move on from D. Alford and CJ because experience. He was transferred from corner to safety. Can play more of that slot role. I think that we've went and attacked every single position that is expensive now and that we can pull levers to get out of. And if these guys pan out like we think they're going to, that would end up making us a lot better when it comes to cap compliance. And even if they end up being a wash talent wise with all these different picks, you're cheaper at the very least of it. Get a reset.
Bingo. Right. And then Bean can make his moves coming into next season for that championship run if we can't get it done this year. All right.
Yeah.
We're 45 minutes in. I appreciate Andy, you commenting. I appreciate everybody that's coming on here real quick. If you're recapping, just obviously you can tune in at any time and see how we did. But I appreciate you coming on, Owen. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And we'll get out of your hair. We'll all get so we can sit and relax for a little bit on this Saturday. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I love being on, and thanks for having me on, Randall.
All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks.